G'day. Today we're doing a bit of a repair and a service on a Toyota Kluger 2011 model V6. Now it's got the U151F transmission in it. The owner's complaining there's a little bit of slippage sometimes, usually when it's cold. It feels like it's slipping through the gears when you take off a little bit harder. And also occasionally there's a bit of a shudder when he pulls up at the lights. Going to do a quick scan, see if we can get anything. And the generic scans found no codes. We'll just do the vehicle specific scan. And we're locked up for some reason. Might have to use the other scanner. Okay, I'll see generic scan as well. No codes found. And no codes found here either. Going to suck out the oil out of the filler tube there. Makes it a little bit less messy. I'm just going to quickly take this cover off just to get access to the pan. Because the filler tube comes in up this end, the front end of the transmission, you can see that the angle of it is down, so I've just taken that plug off to let that little bit of extra fluid out that probably sat in there about to there, where my finger is, and then I can take the pan off. It is a little bit awkward. I've got this subframe here, so there's a couple of bolts that are a bit hard to get to over there, if you can see that. To get to these there's three bolts on the corner of that pan, pretty hard to get to. I've loosened the front of the subframe basically. I've taken these bolts off on this hanger bracket, and I've taken that one right off, and over the other side same. I've taken those bolts off there and loosened that one. That one I can take right off, but it's not even pushing on it, so it's not going to come down very much. And you can see up there how much it's dropped. It's probably dropped about 1.5 inches. And that'll give me a little bit more access to get to those three annoying bolts there on the corner of the pan. Just when you're taking this front mount off, there is one underneath that plug there. There's a rubber plug that sits on there. You can see that's come away. Alright, we'll just take that pan off now. And there is quite a bit of fine metal in the pan, and I'd say in the filter as well. You can see it's got two magnets. One's over here, and you can see it's completely covered, and another one over here. So I dare say that this fine metal has contaminated all the solenoids. And that's what probably is giving him his intermittent problem that he's complaining of. Just taken off that left-hand side bolt off the filter and just let it drain out. A bit more oil comes out. If you're doing it when it's hot, it's just a good idea to just let it drain out or cool down if you can. So what we're going to do in this transmission, because it's got an intermittent problem, there's no fault code stored, I'm going to flush these solenoids out. You can see it's probably never been serviced. It's actually sucked the filter screen right up, contaminated with fine metal. That's why it's a good idea to do periodic servicing on automatic transmissions. And it's very important to clean those magnets so that fine metal doesn't get attracted to these solenoids. Now these have 7 solenoids in there, and what we're going to do is we're just going to, they should all be okay, otherwise there would have been a fault code stored. Here we've got the ATSG manual, and it shows the 150 series transmission. We've got a U151F in this particular vehicle, and this shows just the location of all the solenoids. And here we've got the operation of each solenoid, which one's applied in each gear. There's the clutch and brake application chart as well through the different gears. Putting them externally, there's the connector plug, and it just shows you what colour the wires are. I'll also show you in the following diagram how to test each terminal and which solenoid you're testing. It also shows the resistance values basically at room temperature. They are known to fail when they warm up, so if everything's operating reasonably okay, you'll just get away with flushing it. Otherwise you may need to warm the solenoids up to test them properly. Make sure that it's going through that scale range there. To get these 3 out, you actually need to lower the valve body to be able to get it to slide out through there. If you're going to do that job, you've got to, sometimes you can just lower it and it'll just slide out, but it's important to just do one by one because you can mix them up, and you also mix up these brackets. I've got the SR solenoid and the S4 solenoid out. The SR is only applied in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and S4 is only applied in 5th gear. And I've got 10.5 volts, and you can hear it clicking away nicely there. And the other one. And these aren't linear solenoids, they're just on-off solenoids. So you can test them with, if you make up a little jigger to test with a bit of air pressure, and just to test if they're leaking or not. A little explanation of the SR. It is normally closed, and it blocks the forward clutch pressure from stroking the relay valve. You can see that one's just an on-off solenoid. S4 is an on-off solenoid as well. You can see it's also normally closed. And you can just read the explanation there. I'm not going to go through it. What it applies. Just going to take out the other on-off solenoid. That one there next to it, and these 3 are linear solenoids. So we're going to do these 3. That's the one we've just taken out now, the DSL. Solenoid operation of that. It shows which gears it's in, and it also says that it has 3 functions. In manual low, controls the B2 brake to provide engine braking, and in 3rd and 4th and 5th gear it controls the torque converter clutch. There's the operation diagram of it. You can see it's also an on-off solenoid. A bit of an explanation at the bottom of it there. And you can see from those 3 solenoids how much muck has come out. Some of it would have been washed through as well. So it's a really good idea to flush them out. And you can see the operation of that one as well. You can hear it going on and off. Of course you would need a little tool to see if it's leaking or not, but it's not driving consistently with a problem, so I dare say it probably is just a contamination issue. It's also, if you've got a degauss machine, we've got one from an old, in the old video days where they used to erase videos, and we use that to degauss or demagnetize the solenoid, and you'll be able to clean out a lot of that rubbish a lot easier. Just a little hint for you there. And I forgot to film measuring the resistance of the other ones, but this one's got 12.8 ohms and we've got about 24 degrees temperature, so it's at the lower end of that scale if you have a look on that chart. So we're going to put this one back in. We've flushed and blown it out thoroughly, and it seems to be stroking through its operation okay. You can see there's a bit of rubbish come out of it, which is what we're aiming for. Got everything back on. Like I mentioned earlier, we're not going to do the linear solenoids, 1, 2, 3 and 1 over here. You've got to actually lower the valve body to get them out. So make sure you put your plugs back in if you've taken them off. Just double and triple check that. And basically now we're going to put the new filter on. This one had sucked up the element in it, and hopefully this will be a definite improvement. As you can see, they do the 140E series F and the 151 and the U240. There's a bit of a typo there, but it's the same filter that does all those. So just make sure, you can see the filter's not, the element hasn't been sucked up in this one. Make sure the O-ring's on there, just there, and you just work it in. Sometimes you can cut those seals or they can pop out, so just work it in slowly and you'll feel it sort of go in, and then just nip it up. Make sure you put these cables back in their little holders so they don't wiggle around and wear out on the transmission pan. And hopefully you've checked all the bolts that you may have removed. Just make sure they're all nipped up properly. Okay, you can see I've hammered out that little ding there. And what I'm going to do, instead of putting it again, what I always like to do is just put the magnet up on those little bumps there, just so that magnet has a chance to work top and bottom. More surface area working. Same as this one here. Just going to put it on there like that, instead of flat on the pan. Even if you put it on there on an angle, sometimes you can actually leave them on their edge like that, which is ideal because you get the maximum amount of surface area working, or add more magnets. The cork rubber gaskets, make sure always this pan rail is nice and dry before you put it on. Not so much important with the neoprene or the rubber gaskets, but it's still a good idea to clean it and have it dry. I never use the gasket poo on there unless the pan's been damaged, but that's very rarely. And you don't need to use Loctite in these. It's quite ridiculous, really. I don't know why they do it. Anyway, we're going to put that back together and see how she runs. For reference sake, SL2 and SL3 solenoids are actually the same. One of them is on in first and second, and the other one is on in fourth and fifth. So they're interchangeable, they're the same solenoid. You need two of those in each valve body. Okay, we've got it all back together. Got the covers all back on. This one here, it took me a little bit to remember where it come off. Just slots in there. Okay, we can fill it up with oil. Into the Tritech website, we're using the synthetic low viscosity fluid. Now, because we've lowered the subframe, if you have a look, sometimes some of the vacuum hoses pop off, and you can see that one's come off there. and this one here. It's always a good idea to just have a little look around, make sure everything's back on. We're just going to fill it up with oil. Because they've got a really narrow filler tube, we just like to stick a hose right down there. It just eliminates that bubbling effect. There we go, just back from test run. Seems to be doing everything it should be. Couldn't get it to do the slipping. Might have been because of that blocked filter. It has been ever serviced. Anyway, if you choose to remove those linear solenoids, just remember you got to lower the valve body, and also be aware that there are accumulators and a little spring type valve in there as well, so be careful that that doesn't fall out. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.